So what exactly does Alabama need to fix now that we're putting Texas behind us so that they can become a national contender again? We're going to talk about it.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. I'm just now getting past the shock, the stress of playing in a close football game. I was scared.
That we won.
We did win. We did win. They alerted me when the game was over that we had won, and I could come out from under the bleachers now.
Well, look, ails.com came out with what I thought was a pretty good article, and it talked about some of the things that Alabama really needs to work on. And I said in the opening to be a contender. I mean, look, Alabama's a contender. Before I really get into this, for all the people who want playoff expansion, there aren't 12 teams worthy of a national championship this year. I think that's pretty doggone clear. But that may also be the counter argument to what I'm saying. Like, hey, we don't know anybody could win it. But anyway, I guess that's for a debate for another time. Boy, do I look loungy. I mean, I look so loungy. I'm in my great Alumni Hall T-shirt that I'll talk about in a little bit. But upstairs, I wouldn't get good internet service, so I came downstairs and
the lounge.
I look very comfortable. Sit back and relax and enjoy a little Locked On Bama, everybody.
Very 70s feel to the show now.
In the 70s, it'd be more likely that I have a shirt that looks like the painting behind me, and the shirt would be on the wall. That would be more 70s.
Like a Dick Cavett show.
Anyway, so AL.com comes out with this article about what Alabama really needs to fix going forward, and I thought it was very good. Now, the first thing was very obvious, and we don't even have to expound on it because we talk about it all the time. Offensive line consistency. We can expound on it a little bit in the sense that I was rewatching the Texas game again today, and one thing I'd forgotten about, again, because I was at the game, on the drive where Roydell Williams does not get the first down on fourth down. On first down, Bryce runs for about 4 to 6 yards. I can't remember exactly how much. And Emil Ekiyor's helmet comes off. And Tyler Booker comes in to take his place. I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought it was just interesting. I didn't notice it in the moment because, again, I'm way up in the stands. I didn't even see the helmet come off. I mean, I'm doing the best I can do. But it makes you kind of wonder if Ekiyor had been in there on second down, would McClellan have gotten – I think it was McClellan that got the next carry. Would he have gotten an extra yard to go ahead and get us the first down? It makes you wonder.
Well, that's why we rewatch the games and notice things like that. It's easier to notice when you rewatch because all the emotions sort of taken out. When you watch it live, it's hard to take everything in because you're so emotional watching it. But I've been rewatching the game myself, and so far now I'm not all the way through by any means, but so far I will controversially state, and I just mean this controversially because this isn't I haven't seen an abysmal performance by the offensive line. Now, I have seen some really questionable blocks. I've seen Bryce under duress. I've seen the running game not going like it should. But what I'm not seeing is of Alabama's 5 offensive linemen, them being knocked on their back, them being completely beaten. I saw one sack was definitely Jahmyr Gibbs' fault. It was not the fault of an offensive lineman at all. And while I will agree, no question, that maybe the number one thing Alabama needs to do on offense is improve up front. At this point in my rewatch and after the Utah State game, I do not feel like Alabama's offensive line is a hazmat area, where you need to go in and, in your radiation suit, and clean it all up. I don't think it's anything like that. I think they need to be more aggressive. They need to get better push, but I don't see those those guys getting beat. I saw Dalcourt get beat once, but he's going up a 340-pound guy that the NFL likes. Isn't some of the time? So that's just my early thoughts. I think Alabama's really handicapped, Luke, by not having a vertical threat, and Texas didn't worry about us beating them deep. So they played very aggressive and crashed a lot. By that, I mean, once we snapped the ball, the safeties, they were coming. Not after Bryce, but they were crashing to the line of scrimmage. The linebackers would do the same. They just were very aggressive in the back seven because I don't think they worried about us completing a deep ball down the field behind them or over them.
And I'm going to get to that here in just a second. That is a very interesting take. In fact, let's go ahead and get to it now, because one of the other things in the AL.com article was downfield passing. And in the article, it says, it's been discussed before and will be again. In 2 games, the longest pass play is a 23-yarder to Kobe Prentice. It was a ball thrown 10 yards downfield when 2 Utah State defensive backs busted an assignment. A year ago, Alabama had 7 passes, gained 25-plus yards in the first 2 games of the season. Alabama is averaging 9.14 yards per catch this year compared to 12.9 through 2 games last year against Miami and Mercer. I mean, that is startling, and it's kind of frightening because it also lets me know we're wasting a good deep ball thrower. I mean, Bryce Young is a very good deep ball thrower, but maybe he's a better deep ball thrower. Yeah, maybe he's a better deep ball thrower when Jamison Williams is doing the catching, because you can just sling it and he'll get under it. Maybe that's the case. Because here's the other thing, Jimmy, and I get it. We're missing Tyler Harrell and we're missing JoJo Earl. They may be the 2 fastest guys. And somebody pointed out in the comment section of YouTube, hey, what about Christian Leary? He's pretty doggone fast. Great point. I don't know. But are we saying that Jacoby Brooks, that Kobe Prentice, that none of these guys, Trayshawn Holden, they can't go deep?
I think that's crazy.
Startling of a difference?
I think Prentice is a deep, or at least he is in terms of road speed. And like I have to talk about it all the time because people are just surprised and they're like, "What?" But Jermaine Burton runs a 4.40. I don't know how much faster you need to be to make a play down the field than a 4.4 in the 40. Look, I think we have a tendency as fans in sports, and really probably just humans in life, we want to make every problem into a simple solution. Oh, well, here's how you fix that. Oh, here's a simple fix. I think Alabama's failing to complete balls downfield, not just because of the absence of a receiver that plays that role well. I think it's a combination of that, inexperience at that spot with the fast guys, the offensive line protection that we've already referred to earlier. The protection hasn't been great. I think where the protection hasn't been good, a couple areas. I saw number 45 get beat in pass protection again. He also gave up a sack, Utah State, in pass protection. The backs aren't doing a good job of picking up the blitz. They either misread it and whiff entirely, or they're in the right place, but they get run over because they're sort of small, Gibbs and McClellan. So I think between the protection, there is no outside, there is no obvious Jamison Williams, there is no obvious Devontae Smith out there wide. Now throw this in, Luke. We haven't established a run game. I don't think defenses are playing us honest. I think they're not worried that we're going to gash them in the run. And we're just making our very easy to defend. If we don't have an established run game and we don't have a deep threat outside, then I don't know what the heck we're doing. People keep saying, well, Bill O'Brien's a terrible play caller. What play are you calling? I mean, what play are you calling when you can't run it very well and you're not going to throw deep? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, and I think it's all of these things. It's not just one thing. Now, that makes it sound like the offense sucks and we're going to have problems all year long. I don't believe that for one second. we were 5 teams in college football scored more points than Alabama last year. We have the Heisman winner, a quarterback who's playing really well, by the way. Kind of weird that we're like, offense is bad, but Bryce is great. I mean, it starts with the quarterback, and we're going to be fine. I'll say right now, and I'm sure everybody agrees, this doesn't mean that we're going to solve the problems, but we're going to score a half 100 points on Monroe and on Vandy. We're going to score 50 Saturday, and we'll score 50 the next Saturday. But we won't know that the offense has improved until we play Arkansas and Fayetteville 3 weeks from now.
Boy, I really hate this camera angle on me. I mean, it makes me look like Rosie O'Donnell after Easter Sunday buffet at Golden Corral. It really does. But anyway, I need to tell everybody about BetOnline. BetOnline is betonline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this offseason and regular season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's games from all over the place. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, college football, NFL, whatever it is, betonline.net's got it. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Jimmy, now here's something else. We talked about offensive line consistency. We talked about the downfield passing. How about turnover production? If you had told me going into this season after 2 games at Texas and at home against Utah State that we would have created 0 turnovers, we haven't been very close to an interception. DeMarco Hellams got really upset at himself because he thought he had an interception late in the game on the drive just before Texas drove to kick the leading field goal, but it really wasn't that close. Of the 131 FBS teams, only 8 have yet to create a turnover. And if you want to know what's weird, Alabama and Ohio State are 2 of those 8.
Yeah, I knew Ohio State hadn't either. That's why I'm not exactly panicked over it. I think it's an anomaly for sure. The fine Sports Illustrated writer in one of his pieces this week, Luke, he heard that Alabama hadn't created a turnover in games. He thought that was odd. So he said he started going through box scores, and it was a rabbit hole, and it took him forever. He went all the way back through the early 70s and had not found another example of Alabama not forcing a turnover in their first 2 games. He went every game all the way back to the early 70s, had not found an example of Alabama doing this before, and he just got tired and quit. So he didn't actually find the last time. He got all the way back to like 73 and said, this is exhausting. I'm going to just stop looking. But that just shows, I mean, that's 50 years since Alabama's played their first 2 games without forcing a turnover on defense. Now, is it alarming? Is it cause for concern? I just think it's an anomaly. Look, the defense has given up less than 10 points a game. Even more impressively, I think they've only given up about 250 yards a game, which is nothing in 2022. The defense has played well. There are nits we can pick, but if the defense, I think I've already seen. This is probably a championship-worthy defense. Those who are prone to panic, those who are prone to stress and rant, your focus needs to be on the offense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm certainly with you there. And I can't decide. It's just too early to know, which is the easiest thing. I mean, that's so Philip Marshall of me. If you're an Alabama fan out there, you've ever read a Philip Marshall column, it's usually Auburn could win Saturday. They could lose Saturday. We won't know until Saturday. And I'm like, well, I knew that before you wrote it.
That's a heck of an analysis there.
But anyway, we won't know until the end of the season.
I'll say it right now, Philip Marshall. I like Penn State to beat Auburn. I'm going to go.
Don't give away your predictions till tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, that's
Don't give
tomorrow.
away your predictions.
I'll say I'm leaning 27-17.
Okay.
Penn State.
No, but what I was going to say was we won't know till later, but I'm having a hard time deciding if I believe this Alabama defense just isn't going to be very good at creating turnovers, which is certainly a possibility because they haven't done it yet. against two teams that you would think they would have been able to do it against, or the law of averages will even this thing out, and we're due a 5 turnover game by the competition here very shortly. So, in the end, will this be a pretty typical Alabama defense where, okay, in the end, we may, by season's end, we have created around the same number of turnovers we always create. It's just those first two were an anomaly. And then we had 2 create 5 turnover games, which were also the anomaly. And everything else was we create 1 to 3 turnovers a game.
That's exactly what I think is going to happen. We'll make up for it with some crazy, hopefully at Arkansas, where we might need help with turnovers. I'll take that over Monroe and Vandy turning over, because I don't think we need to get turnovers to beat Monroe and Vandy, but we may to beat Arkansas, in Fayetteville. So yeah, I think it's an anomaly. If you ask me, Luke, here's a defense that forces turnovers. If we're like, what kind of defense forces the most turnovers? Great pass rushers and ball hawks at safety. And I think that's exactly what Alabama's got. I think Dallas and Will and Chris Braswell, they're good pass rushers. They've actually rushed the passer pretty well in the first couple games. Don't have a lot of sacks to show for it, but they've been harassing the quarterback pretty good. Eventually, they're going to harass the quarterback into making bad throws. And you have Battle back there, Helms, Branch, and they do have to situation at corner, but all 3 safeties. So, yeah, I think Alabama's going to just make up for this with 1 or 2 big-time games in terms of multiple turnovers. Did you get so comfortable in the lounge that you muted yourself?
Yes, and I also started my live read. I was sitting there just moving my mouth thinking you're hearing me, telling everybody about Alumni Hall. Look at this shirt, Jimmy. Look at this retro.
Oh, it's fantastic. You look like
the
lead
retro
guest.
Logo.
You look like the lead guest on and you have the 70s logo. You look like the lead guest on Merv Griffin.
I was going to say my neighbor found the old Merv Griffin set, and we're going to talk about.
You personally know Jim Fowler.
Now that is true. I'll tell you about that after this live read.
I know, but is he on the couch with you? Does he have a bird or a snake or a little bobcat?
A raccoon. Anyway, Alumni Hall is where you need to go. alumnihall.com, and then just search for Alabama. They got Alabama stuff galore. This shirt came from Alumni Hall. I wear it all the time. Couldn't be more comfortable. The retro logo, by far my favorite logo. I like the script A with the mullet. That works too, and they have some of those. But the retro logo is my fave. And Alumni Hall, they got the best stuff when it comes to all colleges. If you're listening to this and you're an Arkansas fan, God bless you, first of all. Secondly, they have an Alumni Hall where you can get Arkansas stuff. You can get all this stuff, Ohio State, Auburn, whatever you want. But Alabama is what we're focusing on. Go to Alumni Hall. You will love their stuff. It's absolutely awesome. They got anything you want. I'm at their website looking at it right now. It's super cool. Go get you a good polo and just tell them.
You're getting married. You should get registered there.
If I get married again. If I get married again, I'm gonna have to register at the bank. People don't just give me money. Okay. You brought up Jim Fowler, and I'm only going to say this because you brought it up. Jim Fowler, who most people know was just a recurring guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I think he was even when Jay Leno did it. And there used to be this event called Pop Warner something, and it was sponsored by Russell. Of course, Pop Warner is like a football league all around the country, but this was like all-star teams from various Pop Warner leagues. They all descended upon Alabama. There was actually one from Hawaii that came in, and they all came to Elliott City, Alabama, my hometown, and they played. It was sort of like these high school kickoff games you see now, but it was for Pop Warner. It was a great idea. And now this was back in the early 80s. And so Elliott City, of course, was hosting some other kind of celebrities for a parade and all this other stuff. And Russell at the time, which was a huge deal, big time company, they sponsored all this. And so my family, my father's hosted Jim Fowler, who the Wild Mutual of Omaha's Jim Fowler, who was Marlon Perkins' right-hand man. Marlon Perkins would get on the Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and he'd be like, have y'all ever wondered what it'd be like to take down a a rhinoceros. Just wrestle one right to the ground. Well, I have, and I'm going to get Jim Fowler to do it for me. That was kind of what he did. And Jim Fowler was a big man. He bought a hawk one time, and the hawk was just eating mice everywhere and fetching sticks and everything else. But it was really, really cool to have him there. And so anyway, that's my Jim Fowler story. My other story, when I said Marlon Perkins, it reminded me of this. When I was when was Ray Perkins hired? In 83?
83.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm about 11, and while I'm an Alabama fan at the time, I'm not like into the coaches or into whatever. And I'll never forget this because I still feel stupid for it at age 49. My dad said, "Hey, we had to hire somebody after Bear." I was upset when Bear died, but and he was like, "Well, we've hired our football coach," and he said, "Do you know who it is? It's Ray Perkins." And I said, "I don't know who that is. He hosts Mutual of Omaha." And my dad was like, "Oh Jesus." Oh God, no.
That's it.
And that's
That's
when I started learning more about football stuff.
Your dad should have just stuck with that story all the way through the Ray Perkins there. That's him. That's the one. And you'd have been at the game. You're so much better on Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom than you are calling plays.
All right, Jimmy, we could. There were some other things we could talk about, but since this segment is about over and therefore the podcast is about over, I'm going to tell one more story. This is old school Talking Tuscaloosa pod for those who don't remember it. Jimmy and I used to exchange stories all the time. This is, if I'm lying, I'm dying. This is the truth. I think this was also 82 or 83 because I was only 10 or so. Do you remember? Okay, we always joke to you, like when you do this podcast, that you're using your Tandy 2000. I actually had a Tandy 2000. I got one Christmas. It is the most worthless pile of metal and plastic and glass that's ever been assembled. It is worthless, especially today. I mean, back then we thought it was, one of God's greatest creations.
We just got an email from Locked On. Tandy's a new sponsor.
But anyway, so Dad gave me
still
what?
Is Tandy still a thing? I don't know that they're still a thing. Okay.
I think Tandy's only a thing is Tandy sounds like the name of a bad stripper. Welcome to the stage, Tandy. But anyway, so
she tried to spell candy. Tried to spell candy.
So I don't know if that's you or me, but one of our Tandys is frozen right now. But so my dad gave me this Tandy 2000, right, for Christmas. And I turned it on. Like, I was so excited to have this computer. But then I realized I don't know anything about a computer. Like, to me, it was a typewriter with a screen, right? And so I turned it on, and that cursor's just blinking at me. It's just blinking. And I looked at my dad, and I go, well, now what do I do? Dad was the only person more scared than me. He was like, oh, crap, I just spent a lot of money on this thing, and I don't know what it does. And so there was dead silence on Christmas morning as I was sitting in my pajama pants with no shirt in front of this computer. And my dad, there was dead silence for 30 seconds. And finally, my dad goes, hey, ask it who's going to win the Super Bowl. So I typed in who's going to win the Super Bowl, and it just kept blanking. It didn't do anything. And then now looking back, it dawns on me, my dad and me for a brief moment in time thought that my Tandy 2000 knew who'd win the 1983 Super Bowl. And if that's true, why did Radio Shack let him have the secret? Why didn't they just use it to make all the money, Biff Loman style? That's the saddest Robinson family story in history.
It's a very quiet Christmas. Now what do we do?
It was. That thing was just blank.
You were talking to it you're talking to it like it's Alexa or Siri. Tandy, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah. And Tandy sadly did not know. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with our predictions pod. So y'all come back tomorrow. And until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.